You ever have one of those mornings where the world seems absolutely perfect, and then, boom, out of nowhere, you get slapped right in the face with something so absurd you have to laugh, or you'll just snap? That was me, sitting on my porch, coffee still hot, admiring the Elas blooming in the April sun, when three guys in cheap suits and plastic badges showed up at my gate talking about HOA police and telling me I was under arrest. Under arrest for a garden violation. Yeah, you heard that right. You know what I mean? Sometimes you think you've seen it all, then life throws a curveball you couldn't script if you tried. They didn't know me. Not really. Not the way you should know someone before you try to pull something like this. I kept my mouth shut, let them take me, just to see how far they'd go with their little show. What they didn't realize was, this wasn't going to go how they'd planned, not by a long shot. So, picture this. My yard is the envy of the neighborhood, grass like velvet, flowers lined up like I'd measured them with a ruler. I'd spent 2 years getting it right, finally settling into retirement after decades of real work. Now, here's Tyler Brooks, sweating through his chief enforcement jacket, big guy, badge with more typos than authority, barking about community standards like he owns the place. Behind him's Benjamin Cole, shaking so bad his fake citation book nearly falls apart in his hands. And then Ethan Morris, the youngest, not fooling anybody with those designer sneakers and eyes glued to his phone like he's waiting for orders. Three Stooges, basically, amateur hour. I've seen a lot in 23 years with the Bureau, undercover stings, cartel takedowns, corporate fraud, but these guys, I could spot from a mile away. No government plates, no real credentials, just a bunch of printouts and bluster. Their citation was riddled with errors, wrong address, no case number, no appeals process. Just a bill for $1,500 and a bunch of nonsense about unauthorized modifications. No photos, no prior warnings, nothing. It was a joke, but the kind of joke that isn't funny if you're the punchline. When I started asking questions, real questions about their authority and process, the mood shifted fast. Tyler leaned in, dropped the fake civility, and let the real venom show. People like you make it hard for everyone else, he spat, and Benjamin chimed in. We've had your type before. That's when it clicked for me. This wasn't about flowers, it was about who belonged. Racial intimidation, pure and simple, dressed up as policy. And me, a black man in a mostly white, upper-crust neighborhood? Yeah, they figured I'd just pay up or move out. They figured wrong. I kept up my confused act, but I'd already triggered the silent alarm on my watch. Police dispatch, home security, the works. Within 6 minutes, I had a reply. No authorized HOA actions in my area, no arrest powers, and real officers on their way. But here's where it got tricky. My gut said these weren't just grifters. They were soldiers in something bigger, a coordinated scam. So I decided, let's see how deep this goes. When they told me I had to come in for processing, it was so over the top I almost laughed. Sir, you'll be detained for review until we resolve these matters, Tyler announced, like he was reading from a manual on how to break a dozen federal laws at once. But I played along, confused, compliant, just a guy caught in the headlights. I let them guide me into their unmarked sedan, all the while triggering tracking beacons, sending data to cloud backups, making sure every move was on record. They drove me out past city limits to a rundown industrial district. I watched their route, listened as they talked about the boss and compliance, all classic mob language, dressed up in HOA drag. When we pulled into this so-called office, I clocked every detail. Cameras, reinforced windows, no neighbors, all the markings of a front for something ugly. Inside, it was a play at legitimacy, fancy desks, fake regulation posters, filing cabinets with subdivision names, but no actual licenses, no proof of authority. And then out walks Rebecca Morrison. Impeccably dressed, ice in her veins, smile like a razor blade. She didn't waste time. Mr. Jackson, let's talk compliance, she said, sliding a file across the desk, a fat folder with my name on it. She laid it all out. They targeted properties owned by minorities and families without deep roots, manufactured violations, coordinated pressure, forced sales at rock-bottom prices. She showed me spreadsheets, photos, success stories like trophies. 15 families displaced, 8 million in equity stolen, and plans to scale up. They even had city officials and media on payroll, editors to kill stories, judges to fast-track rulings, cops to look the other way. It was organized crime, wrapped in the American dream. I played the part, lost, overwhelmed, asking dumb questions, memorizing every name and face. She offered me a choice: fight and lose, or join the team and get a cut. She even referenced my law enforcement background, thinking I'd go along for the payday. They knew about my bureau days, but not what I stood for. The irony, right? Let me back up a sec. Imagine being asked to help run the very kind of operation you spent your life putting away. Later, I managed to peek inside a problem cases file, folders thick with intel on families who resisted, some who'd just disappeared. When I gently pushed Rebecca for details, she dropped a hint about stronger encouragement, her way of saying they weren't above making people vanish. My blood ran cold. I was walking a knife's edge. But then a twist. Ethan, the youngest, Rebecca's own son, started reaching out. He was terrified, racked with guilt, desperate to escape the family business. He'd kept secret records, every sale, every bribe, every scam. And he wanted to help make it right, even if it meant turning on his own mother. Sometimes the most unlikely person becomes your key witness. That night, I activated a ghost protocol, emergency contact to Director Martinez, the only one in the bureau I still trusted. Within hours, we had a green light for an off-the-books investigation. Martinez's team dug deep, found shell companies, offshore accounts, a web stretching across a dozen states. Patterned, trained, protected. RICO-level stuff. You want cinematic? Try this. The entire operation, it turns out, was run by a shadowy board. And the chairman was none other than a retired FBI deputy director, a guy I'd worked with for years. That betrayal stung deeper than anything else. He'd set up protection, given warnings, used his position to keep the scam running. No wonder these criminals felt untouchable. But nobody's untouchable forever. With Ethan's evidence, federal warrants in hand, and every I dotted, we coordinated a takedown. A mountain resort, a secret board meeting, federal agents hidden outside, cameras rolling, every voice recorded, every confession locked. When Rebecca realized what was happening, she drew a gun, tried to end it all. I managed to subdue her until backup swarmed in, arrests everywhere, including judges, politicians, and the crooked chairman himself. The whole rotten web unraveled in a matter of hours. The trial was huge. Evidence stacked, so high defense lawyers just gave up trying to poke holes in it. Rebecca and her top lieutenants went away for decades. The chairman got 35 years. Displaced families got their homes and restitution. The community rebuilt, this time with real oversight, real transparency, real justice. For months afterward, I stayed on as a consultant, making sure new HOA policies followed the law, that every resident understood their rights, that nobody could ever again use fake authority to steal from their neighbors. Ethan got a second chance, protected under witness protocols, his courage helping to put his own family's crimes to rest. And when all the dust settled, when the cameras and reporters had moved on, I sat out in my garden, coffee in hand, Ela's blooming, the air sweet with the smell of a neighborhood at peace. I'd planted a little memorial for the families who'd suffered and for my old partner, Torres, whose death had haunted me since the day I'd moved in. Sometimes, even the toughest fights come down to ordinary people standing up for what's right, and the law only works when good folks refuse to back down. So now I'm asking you, if you'd been in my shoes, would you have played along or fought back? Would you trust a system with this much corruption hiding under the surface? Drop your thoughts below. Let's hear where you stand. Stay sharp, protect what's yours, and remember, real justice only works when we all demand it.